now playing in the playoffs. Where do you think things are at for you right now?
Um, I mean, there's been a lot of ups and downs this year. It hasn't been the easiest of year. With the two injuries, never been injured in my life, and this year there's two. Like I said, there's ups and downs, and you can learn from everything. I still know that my game isn't necessarily where I know it can be and where it should be. I'm somebody who puts a lot of pressure on himself and has a lot of expectations. But you just keep working and practice. Now's the time to get your game where you want it to be. And when the second round starts, it's a new, not a new season, but a new series starts, and it's a new game. So that's what I'm trying to work on right now.
Go back to Ted Wyman for a follow-up. Go ahead, Ted.
Pierre-Luc, how difficult was it to sort of just jump in the middle of a series? And, after a couple of games, do you feel like your game progressed quite a bit?
Yeah, it was. There was a little break between the season and the series, and then at least I started game two. So I just missed the one game. Game two was, I thought, for me personally, was okay, and then game three, I thought, we had a better game, and game four was okay also. So, in the playoffs, scoring goals and getting assists is fun, but in the playoffs, every little detail matters, and a lot of them don't appear on the stat sheet, and a lot of them people sometimes don't even see. But at the end of the day, it's about winning, and if you're doing it, whether it's a good stick or good body positioning, that can be the difference between a win and a loss sometimes. So, there's a lot. Winning in the playoffs is a lot more complex.
We'll go next to Jeff Hamilton from the Winnipeg Free Press. Go ahead, Jeff.
Thanks, Gregor. Also for Pierre-Luc. What's the significance of moving to center on that line, and is there as big of an impact when you got a guy like Paul Stastny with you kind of along the way who also plays the spot?
Yeah, I've played center for the past 5 years. And when I was a kid, I played a little bit of center, but I mostly played wing. But I think, where my career took off and where I became the player I am is when I moved to center. So center is definitely the position I'm most comfortable at. It's the position I like to play the most. But when you have a team like ours that's so deep and has guys that can play in the middle, has guys like Stas who plays career in the middle. If I get pushed to the wing, I'm getting pushed to the wing for a guy who has 1,000 NHL games and who I can learn a lot from playing in the middle. So it doesn't really matter where I'm at. As a hockey player, you just have to adjust. You just have to try to get as comfortable as you can. And it's not too hard. Like, I know he's right here next to me, so it's easy to say. But when you have a guy like Stas in the middle, who can move the puck as well as he does, it makes it a lot easier for you on the wing.
We'll go back to Jeff Hamilton for a follow-up. Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay, thanks for that. On the wing thing, were you able? What did you take of your assignment to the wing? Did you see it as an easier workload? We all know that center has a lot more responsibility. How did you take that? Now that you're back to center, how did you take the experience being on the wing?
Yeah, you as a player, you go where you're told to, and like I said, I've been playing the past 5 years in the middle, and a part of what makes me the player I am is that that workload. I like that workload in the middle, and it gets me involved in the game. It gets my feet moving. It gets me, my head in the game. So when you're on the wing, it's a lot different. But I just try to, just play hockey out there and try not to think about it too much, to be honest.
We'll go next to Kelly Moore from 680 CJOB. Go ahead, Kelly.
Thank you, Gregor. Good afternoon, gentlemen. This one is for Paul. Was your emotion excitement, disappointment, or indifference when Montreal scored in overtime to extend the series last night and kind of leaves you in limbo for when this next round is going to begin?
Yeah, I don't think it matters. I think we're in the back of our heads. I know we were preparing, like we'd probably most likely play Sunday. Now we're preparing that we might play, Monday or Tuesday. And if not, it doesn't matter. I think it's always nice to have that little break, and you want the other teams to play against each other and beat up on each other. But at the same time, I think we can only control what we can control. I think the only good thing for me and Dubes, a few guys, is we get to watch the Champions League soccer on Saturday. If we would have played on Sunday, would have been traveling right there in that Chelsea Man City game. So I told one guy, that was the only positive I took out of it. Other than that, I watched the game kind of expecting the series to be over, so mentally be ready. And if it gets extended, it gets extended. And now I think more than anything too, I think I'm excited to see fans in Montreal. I think Canada's been waiting long enough, so it's 2,500 fans, but Montreal, Toronto, those are probably two most famous franchises, in all the NHL. So, those fans are going to be as loud as anyone. And, it'll be exciting to watch because I think, it's, the game misses that when you're watching playoff games. I think those games are way more exciting watching with fans and without fans. And, it's just one little step closer.
We'll go back to Kelly Moore for a follow-up. Go ahead, Kelly.
So I don't know if Paul or Pierre-Luc wants to answer this one, but are you guys cheering for the same team in Champion League soccer, or is there a little side bet going on there?
Who are you cheering for?
I'm not a Chelsea fan or a Man City fan, but Fly Ehlers, he's a Chelsea fan, diehard Chelsea fan. So I might get a bet against him because I think Man City's going to win, and I know he's never going to bet against Chelsea. So I'll probably try to get a bet going with him that Man City is going to win.
Yeah, I'm a Man United fan, so rooting for City is tough. My best friend Steiner is a huge City fan, but I'm pulling for Chelsea. I think Pulisic, the only American on both those teams, so you got to root for them. I'm actually just hoping it's a good game. I think it will be.
Go next to Ken Weave from Sportsnet. Go ahead, Weaver.
Thanks, Gregor. Afternoon, guys. For Paul, you've been on long playoff runs before. How do you quantify the value of rest, even though it's only after the first round?
Yeah, I think it's important. Only because this one's been unique. I know, we swept them, but at the same time, we basically played 4 games in 4 nights, if you count all the overtimes, or we played, 3 games in 2 nights, or, stuff like that. We started a little later. So it basically took us a couple of days just kind of get mentally and physically kind of freshen up again. And yesterday's game was more just kind of flush everything out of the system. And today we got back to work, and now I think we're starting to feel normal again. So yeah, it was a sweep at the same time because we started later, because we had all those overtime games that felt longer than that. So I think, whenever you get a chance to get a break, it's nice. But then I think our coaches have done a good job of, all right, time to flip the switch and start getting back to what's made us successful, start working on those systems, start working on things that's going to make us be successful, and start working on things that, both teams, bring up as a challenge that we can work on. And then I think once we finalize what team we're going to play, then I think we can get a little more specific in practice.
We'll go next to Mike McIntyre from the Winnipeg Free Press. Go ahead, Mike.
Thanks, Gregor. Afternoon, guys. This is for Paul. Paul, you just mentioned you thought your coaches did a good job sort of getting guys ready. I wonder if I can just take you back quickly to the first round and just your overall assessment of the job Paul and the staff did to make adjustments on the fly in a unique season like this, where you're facing an opponent you've seen so much of. Coaching adjustments are probably key. What did you think of the job your coaching staff did in round 1?
Yeah, I've said since day one. They've been unbelievable, and they know what to say when we're winning games. They know what to say when we're going through slumps. You guys don't see the stuff behind closed doors. I've had some good coaches, and I've had some bad coaches. So you appreciate when you get them. Yeah, whether they're little adjustments or not, I think the biggest thing for them was kind of making us stay patient, sticking with the game plan. And sometimes we get away from it, and he knew we got away from it, but he didn't overreact. I think he just kind of re-implemented it in our system, talked between periods to get back on track and kind of stick with it. Because you could win a game, you could win 2 games, and they're all close. Basically they're all 1 goal. Everyone was a 1 goal game if you take the empty netter. So really they're all kind of 60-minute games plus. And allow them, like I said, it's all about patience and sticking with the game and not quitting and not getting away from a game if we're up to nothing, and not getting away from our game if we're down 4-1. And I think that that starts from that calming presence and the messages kind of between periods and for the game that Paul always relays to us.
We'll go next to Stephen Wino from the Associated Press. Go ahead, Steve.
Hey, Pierre-Luc, you obviously came here via trade earlier in the season. How much did that extra time, not being traded at the deadline, help kind of you fit in with this group?
Yeah, I think it was huge. Especially this year with the lack of practice time that we had. I got that 2-week quarantine, or I guess at the deadline it would have been a week, but to try to get to know the systems, watch the team play. I think it was really important to get that time. Obviously, the 2-week quarantine was good for learning and watching them play, and not so good for not being able to skate or really do much in the exercise those 2 weeks. But I think it was really helpful for me to be here at that time and not necessarily 2-3 weeks, a month before the playoffs started.
We'll go back to Steve Wino for a follow-up. Go ahead, Steve.
Paul, you did this in 2018, coming over at the deadline. What's the key to fitting in? What's the key as a trade deadline guy to coming in late and having an impact like you did?
Yeah, I think it's just you just be yourself. I think kind of play your game. I think that you're brought in here for a reason. It's not to change the game, and sometimes it's tough because like some guys might get moved around the lineup a little bit, but you try not to worry about that. I think you just try to play your game because so many different guys have been traded, you play with, and you hear different stories, and whether they work out well or they don't. Sometimes you try to do too much. Sometimes you're trying not to step on anyone's toes. But like I said, here they did such a good job, starting obviously with Chipper to Chevy to Paul to Wheels. Top down, everyone makes you feel at home, makes you feel right in lineup, and makes it really easy for you. It makes it really easy for if you're coming, with your girlfriend or your wife or your kids, that you just focus on hockey and that's nice. Like sometimes it could be harder, but they do everything like that. So, before you know it, I think after a couple of days, kind of the emotional shock's gone, and all of a sudden you feel like you've been on the team for a couple of months, and you just feel like you're at home, and that just kind of speaks testaments to the way the Winnipeg Jets organizations ran.
Just a couple more for the guys. We'll go next to Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet. Go ahead, Sean.
Thanks, Gregor. Paul, you actually kind of asked the question or answered the question I was going to ask. So I'll ask it of you, Pierre-Luc. What do you think this team does well to bring players like you in and make you feel like you're part of the whole?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Good for you.
No, I think I already answered.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, like I said, for me, I had the 2-week quarantine, so it was, in a sense, tougher for me to meet the guys and everything. But from getting texts or places to eat, to getting sent video, trying to be in those meetings on Zoom about the systems or about the opponent, or power play PK meetings. I thought that the staff and the team here and the whole organization making it easy for me, for my girlfriend to come here. I mean, I didn't have to worry about anything, and it's such a stressful moment, such a life-changing moment in your life, not just in your career, but in your life, that it could be stressful, it could be harder. Some stuff could be in your head that would not necessarily hurt you in your game, but maybe your head is somewhere else at times. But they made it so much better. They made it so much easier for me to just concentrate on hockey. And I was really grateful that the whole staff, the whole organization, just helped me throughout that whole process, because it's the first time in my life that you get traded in the middle of the season. So it could have been a lot more stressful, a lot harder, but the whole team really did a good job and helped me out.
And final question to Ted Wyman from the Sun. Go ahead, Ted.
Paul, as a line mate of Pierre-Luc's, what have you seen from his game over the course of the season as it's gone along?
Yeah, like I said, I think the hardest thing for him or for anyone is, injuries is one thing. I think being in quarantine for 14 days after you come, after you're in shape from training camp, that's tough. No one talks about that, because usually when you're hurt, you can at least skate or do exercise. So I think that's one thing you got to take into account for. And then I think once he started finding his groove, I think it's just for him and for anyone, sometimes you're young like that, you kind of put a lot of pressure on yourself. But when he's at his best, I think he's not thinking out there, because he's hard on himself, so it's not, he's every time something doesn't go right, that goes his way, he's always yelling at himself. But sometimes that's the nature of the beast when you're young. Sometimes when he's, like I said, not thinking, enjoy himself, it's the little things. I think he's so big and strong, he can skate, and once he protects the puck, he buys himself that extra 1 or 2 seconds for us to get open, our D-men to get open. And then now he's become more of a shooter there on that second power play, or that first power play, whatever you want to call it. And all of a sudden, that's changed a lot, because all of a sudden you can't just sit on one side and take away fly. I think a lot of that success, especially in the playoffs, came from Dubes kind of starting to attack the net, starting to get the puck on net. It sounds simple, but it's almost playing a simpler game. And sometimes I think when you are used to playing center, when you're a playmaker, you're trying to find everybody, and sometimes, just getting the puck on them, you might be trying to score, but at the same time, you're really kind of creating chances for the other guys. And then I think, like we talked about, whether I'm playing center, whether he's playing center, whether it's face-off plays or not, I think we do a good job of communicating each other. It's nice. Like I said, if I'm taking draws, it's nice having a wing, because I know he knows how to play a center, so he knows what guys to pick. He's kind of playing the win and not worried about the puck. He has an idea where the puck's going to go. And for example, if Fly's game winning goal there in overtime, if Dubes is kind of just focused on the puck or just going to the net, that guy probably blows right past them, and then Fly doesn't get the shot off. So it's little stuff like that you guys, it's probably not talked about, but as a centerman playing wing or vice versa with him, I think it's easy to read off each other, and that's been nice. And then I think, like I said, if I'm playing center, if I'm playing wing, and I get in the zone first, I know as a centerman, he can just cover for me. And if Fly's in a different position, we all cover for each other. And it's little stuff like that. And when you do have smart hockey players around you, it makes it easier, because then you don't have to think as much. And I think sometimes that's what the name of the game is. The less you think, the faster you're playing out there. And sometimes what happens in playoffs, you try to do too much, you're trying to think too much, you're trying to do one thing, and you're just playing that half second slower. I think when you're playing with good players, and you can be aggressive because they're going to cover you, or they can be aggressive because I'm going to cover them, then it makes the game a lot easier. And I think that's what I see in Dubes, and that's what me and Fly see when we're all together on a line.